maybe Xavier, because I've kind of dumped on them for not doing much out of conference, and it being really a two-horse kind of a league and not the Big East of old.
Now's your chance to let Joe answer your question. 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. What about your team, your league? Who should or shouldn't be in? Where do you agree or disagree? Your questions for Joe Lunardi. Get it on right now. ESPN Radio. Get in the
zone. AutoZone. Don't let worn-out brake pads stop you. Roll into AutoZone for the parts and advice you need to replace them yourself. So go get them. Before you know it, you'll be ready to tackle that grinding transmission.
Sign up for AutoZone Rewards today. Just spend $20 or more 5 times and earn $20 in store credit.
Get in the zone. AutoZone.
See store for restrictions and details.
I can't believe our buddies at Warner did it again. This year, they've come up with a brand new ladder style that they call the Podium. This thing has a giant platform big enough to hold me. It's cool because it lets you safely work in any direction. It also has an extended guardrail that you can lean on. I'm telling you, this new Warner Podium ladder is really cool and comfortable. It feels like I'm standing on the ground. On a ladder that lets you work facing any direction. Seriously, you got to check this out. Go to WarnerPodium.com. That's WarnerPodium.com.
This is Steve Brennan with Brennan Dodge, and with a huge selection and massive incentives, it's your time to get into the back-to-back Motor Trend Truck of the Year at Brennan Dodge in Ruston. With fuel economy at 25 miles per gallon, Ram durability, great looks and power, you get so much more for your money. It doesn't make sense to look anywhere else. During February and March's truck months, get a Yeti cooler or step bars with any Ram purchase. Only at Brennan Dodge, I-20 Service Road, Ruston.
Coming to the Monroe Civic Center, March 7th through the 9th, the 56th annual Bayrack Shrine Circus. Bring the kids and enjoy all the action. Ride an elephant or a pony. Watch the dancing bears, aerial acts. Tahara the Alligator King is back. Brand new, the Human Comet. There's something for everyone. Proceeds help the Shriners with their many projects that help our communities. Come to the Monroe Civic Center Friday, Saturday, Sunday, March 7th, 8th, and 9th for the 56th annual Bayrack Shrine Circus.
Get a little color for a good cause. The inaugural Color Me for a Cure 5K to benefit the Susan G. Komen Foundation will be held March 15th at 9 a.m. in downtown Ruston. It's similar to a 5K with the fun twist of having colored powders thrown on you at each kilometer mark of the race course. Registration is $35 for adults and $20 for youth 12 and under online through March 12th. For more information, go online to KomenNELA.org. You can also check it out on Facebook at Komen NELA.
I'm Lieutenant Governor Jay Darden. I love being a tourist right here in Louisiana, and that's easy to do thanks to LouisianaTravel.com. Whether it's a one-tank trip for 2 to a romantic destination or a 3-day outdoor adventure with the kids, LouisianaTravel.com has all the trip ideas and planning tools you'll need. So log on, explore our great state, and pick your passion in Louisiana. Visit LouisianaTravel.com.
Hey, have you ever dreamed of being involved with something big? Like helping with statehood for a Commonwealth, helping get the U.S. airmail started, or helping children who are affected by HIV? How about meeting future presidents of the United States, celebrities, people like you and me who want to change our world?
So change your world.
Hey, it's no dream. It's the JCs.
Get involved and go the distance. Show your pride, your confidence. You're ready for the fight, so take a stand.
The JCs give you the opportunity to change your world.
Change your world. Express yourself, your versatility. Change takes time, but you take the time to change.
Whether it's helping less fortunate in your own community, developing personal and career skills, or networking on a global level, you can do more and become more. The United States JCs, touching lives and changing the world. To learn more, visit usjcs.org or call 1-800-JCs.
Dan Evans reporting live on the street for Newsbeat. It seems that people all across Louisiana are going crazy over getting their refund check. Excuse me, sir? What's going on?
Here, son, I just got my refund check. Hey, reporter dude, I just got my refund check too. Totally awesome.
Ma'am?
I got my
refund check. I got my refund check.
It seems a bit early to be getting a tax refund check, but wait, I just got word from the control room that refund check is a new scratch-off from the lottery where you could win up to $4,000. You can get your refund check at any lottery retailer, but you must be at least 21 to purchase. Here, hold this.
Dude, hey, where are you going?
Well, to get my refund check from the lottery.
Hey, whoa, am I on TV? Testing. Hey, Mom, Dad, refund check from the lottery rocks.
Play refund check today from the lottery. Win up to $4,000. Dude.
The 50,000-watt sports big dog, KNBB, Dubach Monroe, ESPN Radio, 97.7. Coffee's on, and so is the Nick Brown Show on ESPN Radio 97.7. Get ready for a fresh brew of sports talk for the next 2 hours with your calls at 888-993-7762. Now, here's your host, Nick Brown.
Good morning. Welcome to the Nick Brown Show. Appreciate you waking up early, turning that radio on. Hope you have a great cup of coffee in front of you. Certainly look forward to the next 2 hours, bringing you a great radio show. If you're out and about in Ruston, we're in the Ruston's only downtown coffee shop. It is the Depot. It is Coffee with a Cause. Certainly have a great show planned for you. Going to have our regular feature, champs and chumps, great champs and chumps from the world of sports this week. Plus, we're going to talk college basketball. March Madness is upon us. All three teams in the area, and we're going to talk about the reasons why ULM qualified for the Sun Belt tournament. Certainly congratulations to the Warhawks and Keith Richard on the job they've done. Now go down to New Orleans after they close out the regular season and playing for that automatic bid. Louisiana Tech, back-to-back conference champions. Last year in the Western Athletic Conference champions. This year moving over to Conference USA and winning a share of the Conference USA championship, earning that #1 seed. And what's important about that? We know how conference tournaments are. That's the reason they call it madness. Anything can happen when you go to El Paso. You can hear all the positives as the #1 seed. The negative, not really being on a neutral floor, having that out in the Haskins Center in El Paso. So certainly the NIT bid is already guaranteed, but you certainly want more, want the NCAA bid. And then going to look over at Grambling State, also going to make it into the conference tournament. And it depends on how the NCAA defines postseason play, but certainly going to talk about that at 9:30 this morning. Then at 10 o'clock, not going to have the guest live because he had prior obligations, but Tommy Tomlinson, he's from the Charlotte Observer and does a lot of freelance writing for ESPN.com and for other magazines, Forbes magazines as well. Did a great piece. Now, March Madness, you got to think about Dean Smith and the legacy that he leaves in college basketball. Retired many years ago, 1997, Joel, and suffering from dementia and Alzheimer's. It's really sad, but a touching tribute and a great piece. If you can find that, it's on ESPN.com. It's from Tommy Tomlinson. Plus, we're going to have your calls at 888-993-7762. But really just a great show, talking a lot of college basketball today, Joe.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that time of year, isn't it, Nick? The Tommy Tomlinson article, by the way, is entitled Precious Memories, and it really is a touching article. As a matter of fact, I'm going to get a link to that and put it on our Facebook page. Speaking of the Facebook page, you can go there right now, facebook.com/Nick Brown Show, or you can go to ESPN977.com and click the video stream link, or the video channel button, I think is what it's actually titled there, and that'll take you straight to YouTube. We've got a YouTube page now, youtube.com/RedPeachESPN. You can subscribe. Make sure that you always catch our shows when we're live. We're live streaming every Saturday morning from the Depot here in downtown Ruston. And if you miss the show for some reason, or if you miss a part of it, you can always catch it in an archive right there on YouTube at your convenience. Just like last week, we had that great unscheduled interview with head coach Todd Berry for the ULM Warhawks, and a lot of folks caught that on YouTube there on the archives.
Yeah, and certainly going to bring that up because that is something that we talked about here, and it was tabled. The NCAA did table that decision. The vote was going to occur on March the 6th, so basically for another year, still be allowed. There will be no slowing down of the play, but they're going to table it for a year, And really to look at it, Joel, thought about it, when you look at that, as you go through, you're going to have to look at practice injuries, game injuries, everything. But on March the 5th, it came up and tabled that. And I certainly, and told everybody this week, they caught that interview, how great it was to interview first Todd Cooley from Delta State, and then Ty Berry calling in. And everyone seemed to echo the same sentiments, Joel, and that is that, if Todd Berry was the spokesperson for that from the get-go, and you didn't have it diluted, and I know you had bigger name programs, not bigger names. Todd Berry is certainly a very good football coach, but at bigger schools, at AQ schools, basically Brett Bielema at Arkansas and Nick Saban at Alabama, kind of muddied the waters just a little bit and found it unusual. Certain things that go through into this. The head of the NCAA officials said that Nick Saban asked to come in. And then the Alabama release after this, Nick Saban said he was asked to come up. All these things muddied the waters. And really, to be honest with you, and we've known Todd Berry for years, great job at ULM, to me, kind of put those guys, Troy Calhoun and those guys in the committee, in a bad place. And certainly you pitted, those that wanted it against those that against it. But again, I really think that Todd Berry appreciated him calling in. And the way that he explained it, certainly was a lot better than what had been out there before.
Absolutely, Nick. And, one of the interesting things that came up in that conversation, I asked him the question, why now? Why the rush? Why in a year when the only way you can make a rule change is if it affects player safety? Why not wait for next year when all of these sorts of things will be on the table? Why is this so pressing? And he made a very good argument. He said, if you look at the growth of the heads-up, no-huddle offense in the sport, in the NCAA, it's going to explode, or it's set to explode over the next 2 years. It had a gigantic leap last year over its historical levels as far as use among the teams and programs. Next year, it's projected to be even bigger. 2 years from now, it's projected to be effectively the entire NCAA. That's the way this thing is spreading. And their point is, if there are injury problems, why not get out ahead of it? He said, your question is, why now? My question is, why wait? And it was a good question. If you really believe that this is about player safety, if you really believe that kids' lives and livelihoods and physical well-being are on the line, then I can understand why there might be some desire to kind of rush into this. However, I think that the right decision was made. You table it. You allow the statistics. You allow the numbers. You allow the real facts to decide this thing. And over the course of the year, I think there's going to be enough discussion of it that we'll have a real answer that not a lot of people are going to be upset about at the end of the day.
No, because when you look and you can say it, if you're a coach that employs a hurry-up, no-huddle offense and you're going through, and it does lead to more injuries, well, obviously you're concerned about your players as well. And so I think, here's the interesting point, though. You talk about it's going to spread into college football. More and more people doing it. You're going to see, obviously, that trickle down. You can already see there's already high school teams doing it, but now more people are going to do it because what it does, it lets you, a lot of times you can't coach size, but you can coach the speed and quickness and agility that you have and suit your offense to your players' needs. So I think you're going to see more high school teams doing it as well. So the possibility of, if you're going to have more injuries on the collegiate level, then, trickle down, would you have more injuries on the high school level as well? But I think you're going to see more and more teams doing this style of offense as it gets more popular.
Not only will there be a proliferation in high school, you would imagine there would be because of the perceived advantages of that style of offense, but also, Nick, you got to think about the fact that a lot of these high school players, their entire goal is about getting seen at that Division I level, about getting noticed and getting chosen for one of those teams. And if you look at these schools, the coaches are going to be more and more apt to say, hey, what they're going to be playing is this no-huddle offense, this hurry-up offense. Let's go ahead and get them prepared for that. And so, yeah, I do think you're going to see it trickle down to high school. And he's right. If Todd Berry says if they're right about the offense causing more injuries, then you're going to see it at the high school level as well. And Lord knows we've seen enough of those recently in North Louisiana. We don't need to see any more.
That's exactly right. Before we, make that transition over to Champs and Chumps, there's something we got to bring up because normally it's going to be a Champs and Chumps type segment. But we talked about it and discussed it last week. We had Curtis Conde on from Utah Valley and how they had the unfortunate incident where one of their opponents threw a ball at one of their players, and their coach, their fans always stormed the court. And if you know that he was really kind of quiet when I asked the question, and because I'd read their media guide, and one of their traditions is that they always storm the court. And I kind of, and I asked him, is that a tradition that you guys have, this storming the court at the end of every victory? He said, yes, it is. And you notice we didn't expound on that any. Well, we had another incident this week in college basketball, and it goes back and it begs the question, something I think, Joel, that is worth discussing here on the show, and that is, UC Santa Barbara. And here's the thing: it's not. You're thinking basketball, Tobacco Road, ACC. In my mind, I'm going to Carolina. Little James Taylor. Certainly love that. But now you're looking at this UC Santa Barbara versus Hawaii, and everyone in North Louisiana familiar with Hawaii made their trips over this way as members of the Western Athletic Conference. But really, a strange event that happened at their game. One of their players was called for a foul. Flagrant foul led to a technical foul on the coach, and the coach was walking out on the court. A fan from UC Santa Barbara runs down the aisle, and you can watch the video, jumps over basically a little part of the scorer's table, and he's out on the floor. No one stops him, comes up, and confronts the head coach for Hawaii. Now, one of his players steps up. Luckily, he didn't knock the guy out. And I think that's where I'm going with this. But he pushed him aside, then another player pushed him aside, and the player was escorted out, but it was all kind of fun and games, ha-ha. And I think they said he was arrested, but you really see no name mentioned or whether he was arrested. And then it goes back to buying that ticket. And part of that is, you hear it all the time, what is done to get students to come to a game? Well, you have a cash prize, you food involved, you give away books, all these things, contests, you get them in. Then after a big victory, you go out and say what a great part you were in that victory. Have we expanded the role of a fan, expanded that role? And now, really what does your ticket entitle you to do? And where I'm going with this is, in my opinion, the ticket entitles you to sit in the stands and enjoy a game. Now, should you win something or be fed, that's a bonus. But it's getting to the point where now, and what it's going to do is going to raise the price of ticket prices. You're going to have to say something, or you're going to have to immediately arrest people, because you can't have people running out on the court. Somebody's going to get seriously injured.
Absolutely, Nick. And you look back, you think back to some of these terrible moments in sports history. I was thinking, as you were talking about that, I was thinking about during the Olympics, the Tanya Harding and Nancy Kerrigan incident. But there have been others. There's a couple in the world of tennis where
Monica Seles was
exactly.
stabbed. Yeah.
Fans rush the field or rush the court. I think it's interesting because in the modern era, what we've done is we have humanized celebrities, athletes, heads of state even. You think of Obama's on Twitter. President Obama's on Twitter. These celebrities, these athletes are all on Twitter, even at the college level. And what you can do is, as you follow them, a lot of the ways that they interact with social media, it's very personal. And you get the sense that you're on the inside. Yeah. Whereas in the past, only the very top dollar donors were ever in the behind the scenes. They ever got to know the coach person to person. They ever got to know these star players person to person, the heads of the administration. Now everyone gets the feeling that you know these people. They get the feeling that they're entitled for their opinion to be heard too. And that's not the case. The fact of the matter is that's not the case. If you're a supporter of a program, there's definitely room for your voice to be heard, but there are channels to do that. There's emails to be sent to the athletic director and the administration. There are ways to address your grievances with the program, with coaches, with personnel, with conveniences at the stadiums, all of those sorts of things. There's channels to send those things through. You don't storm the court. You don't confront the coach in person. Definitely not on the court.
Well, my point is this. You look at this situation the other night, UC Santa Barbara fan, and we want to hear from you on the Diamond Ball hotline, 888.
It ended so badly.
Yeah, that's where I'm going, 888-993-7762. But just think for a minute. If that Hawaii player sees the guy running towards his coach
and reacts,
hey, he views that as a threat of his head coach, who he dearly loves, plays hard for, works every day. Now, most college basketball players are not vertically challenged. So you're looking at a guy who's probably 6'7". You look at a guy who maybe 6 foot, 5'10", 5'11" around the floor. Now, no contest. Runs up to him, pow, hits him, knocks him out. He's unconscious. And then you know what? Although his stupid actions have run out on the floor, he's now going to file a lawsuit against the University of Hawaii and the University of California at Santa Barbara for allowing him to run on the floor. And our college is doing enough. Should they do more? Or are you always going to have this problem? I mean, certainly, as you were discussing, we're going to talk about it today and really look forward to our champs and chumps, but also what we're going to talk about at 9:30 and 9:45 with the SWAC APR penalty. All talking about, it's a March Madness kind of day here on the Nick Brown Show. We're at the Depot, Ruston's only downtown coffee shop. We're going to take a break. Come back and join us. Go ahead and refill that coffee cup. You're listening to The Nick Brown Show on ESPN 97.7 FM. We'll be back in just a minute.
My pocket going jingle-lang-a-lang. Wants to call you on the telephone, baby. I give you a ring, but each time we talk, I get the same old thing. Always no huggy, no kissy until I get a wedding ring. My honey, my baby, don't put my love upon no shelf. She said, don't give me no lines and keep your hands to yourself.
Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there is more than a slogan. It's a promise, and it's the only way we at the Skip Russell Agency at 105 Reynolds Drive in Ruston do business. When you have an insurance question or a claim, we'll be ready with quick, friendly service that State Farm has made famous. Whether it's car, home, life, health, or business insurance, you'll always get affordable coverage backed by the good neighbor service from State Farm and the Skip Russell Agency. That's a promise. Call us today at 255-5050.
Sexton Animal Health Center in Ruston serves your pet and you, providing high-quality pet health and wellness services to assist your pet in living a longer, happier, and healthier life, and providing you with access to leading-edge products, services, and educational content to enhance the bond with your pet. Sexton Animal Health Center is a full-service veterinary medical facility, providing the best possible medical, surgical, digital radiology, and dental care for their patients. And ask about pet daycare and boarding, too. Sexton Animal Health Center, 1628 East Kentucky in Ruston. Become a friend on Facebook to receive the latest news and updates.
You depend on your vehicle to keep you on the road, but who do you trust to keep it running smoothly? Your Chevron neighborhood pit crew at Chevron Fast Lube. Drive right up and we'll take care of the rest. Relax in our comfortable waiting area while certified Chevron technicians perform an 18-point service check. Within minutes, you'll have the results, followed by the quality service you need to get you back on the road quickly and with confidence. Quality, confidence, trust. You can depend on it at your neighborhood Chevron Fast Lube. Tech Drive in Ruston.
This week in Grambling sports, Chandler Thomas led the Tigers with a double-double of 17 points and 12 rebounds at Alabama State University, but the GSU men fell 66-68 Thursday night. Tonight, they'll try to rebound against Alabama A&M University in Huntsville. For the GSU women, Thursday night, Joanna Miller scored 17 points and went over 1,000 points for her career at GSU. The squad came up just short overall, though, falling to Alabama State University 77-78. The Southwestern Athletic Conference and its Council of Presidents and Chancellors reviewed, voted, and approved to amend the SWAC bylaws that govern if an institution's team and or student athletes can participate in the conference season-ending tournaments and championships. The adopted bylaw, which will allow all 10 member institutions to participate in the SWAC tournament, will be used to determine which SWAC member institution will receive the conference automatic qualification to represent the conference in the NCAA tournaments for each respective sport. The previous policy restricted several current SWAC institutions from participating in postseason play due to APR restrictions. For ticket info, the Grambling ticket office is open Monday through Thursday 9 to 4, Fridays 8 to 11, or you can call them directly at 318-274-2625.
This is the Nick Brown Show on ESPN Radio 97.7. Get in the game by calling 888-993-7762. Email nickbrownshow@suddenlink.net or get social on the Nick Brown Show Facebook page.
Welcome back to the Nick Brown Show. Appreciate you waking up early and joining us. We're at the Depot, Ruston's only downtown coffee shop. Come out and join us. We're here every Saturday. Joel and I are from 9 to 11. So come out and join us. I want to tell you about Chevron Fast Lube. They are the official fast lube of the Nick Brown Show. Go by, see Danny and the guys. Get you a complete oil change. There's even coffee in the waiting room. I certainly like that. But they're much more than just an oil change. Great guys working there. And get that inspection sticker. I've told you that before. Go by $10. Paying $10 for the inspection sticker is much better than getting that $161 ticket. And also get a may offer for 2 years. So certainly for guys like me that procrastinate, a 2-year inspection sticker is certainly a way to go. And that's at Chevron Fast Lube on Tech Drive in Ruston, the official fast lube of the Nick Brown Show. Now, Joel, this past week, a lot of champs and chumps possibilities.
Oh, man, a ton of them.
It's easy. It's really an easy part.
Well, and chump, and we're going to get to this in a minute. As a matter of fact, it's a big enough story. You wanted to talk about it, too. We're going to really focus on it in the next segment. But my chump this week appeared right at the beginning of the week. We barely got off the air on Saturday, and I read this story, and I was immediately just inflamed by it. So we're going to get to that in a minute. I'm going to start, though, with my champ. And I don't give this team in particular that many props. They are one of my favorite teams. They're further down the list in the NBA, but they are a team that I root for when the others aren't in contention. The Houston Rockets. The professor, Nick Harrison, of course, a big Houston fan. He's loved them since he was a kid. And now they're making a big splash with Dwight Howard on the roster. This week in particular, though, they did some damage. LeBron James was on fire. Of course, he broke his nose about a week ago. He's wearing the mask. He scored 61 points, had that tremendous game, and then followed that up with a performance against the Houston Rockets where he couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. They played some excellent defense, had a good offensive night, and came away with a three-point win against LeBron James and the Miami Heat. That's not what made them my champ, though. They followed that up with beating the best team in the Eastern Conference, the Indianapolis Pacers. Houston Rockets right now, they're the best team in the league since January 1st. They ripped the Pacers 112-86 on Friday night. That's the second slaying of an Eastern Conference juggernaut after that win over Miami Heat. For those two back-to-back alone, but really for their whole streak running back to the 1st of January, Houston Rockets are on a tear. They're going to be a force to be reckoned with in the Western Conference playoffs. I think perhaps even overall, Nick Harrison, be happy. This is your year. They got a shot at the title. I'm going ahead and saying it. The Houston Rockets are for real. They're my champs this week.
All right, I'm going to go over to my chumps. And we've had a guest on our show early that coached with Frank Martin from South Carolina. Frank Martin is a very fiery coach. He's coaching in South Carolina Gamecocks, a once proud program. They're in the SEC now. Years ago, they were in the ACC. Coach prior to Frank Martin being hired. Frank Martin, very fiery, emotional. Just think Bobby Knight-esque, if that is such a word. The coach they had before that was Darren Horn. And with Darren Horn, you had a guy who was very cerebral, very calm, very laid back. Not saying that he couldn't get emotional, because every coach has that ability. So when you say someone is cerebral, that doesn't mean they never get excited. But they replaced Darren Horn with Frank Martin. And when they went after Frank Martin, they knew what they were getting. They knew they were getting an emotional type coach that was fiery, in-your-face style. Now, you can argue whether there's still a place for that coach in sports anymore, but that's a different topic. And I really think that's sad, but there's not a place for that anymore. But he was suspended from the University of South Carolina for their final game on the road against Mississippi State. South Carolina is my chump, and I will explain why. I do not condone Frank Martin for using foul language. We know that unfortunately is a part of sports, and if the NFL, that could be another chump. They looked at banning a racial term. I certainly agree with that, but if you're going to do that, let's go with every profanity and things that people say that are derogatory. But, Joel, they knew what they were getting when they went after Frank Martin. It's like me buying a Corvette and then upset that I got a speeding ticket. You don't pull a boat with a Corvette. My point is, they knew what they were getting in Frank Martin. And now, is this the sign of the end of Frank Martin's tenure? Only a 2-year, as a second year in Columbia, South Carolina. Because here, the thing about it, by suspending him for that game, he's going to be on eggshells. Obviously, the guy said, hey, I need help with my, aggression, and I need to get counseling and everything like that. But now is that going to be the end of the term? So basically, he's been suspended for what you knew, and that's what you wanted in a basketball coach. So South Carolina, I think it could have been handled differently because, to me, when they go on the road, what if they play well and win with a guy who doesn't yell and curse? And then now you're going to look and see. So South Carolina's my chump.
That's a good one. For chumps this week, you were right. There were a ton of them. I could put the New Orleans Saints in this slot. A lot of releases over the past couple of weeks as they're in the middle of their off-season, making moves, trying to reload for the future. We're going to talk about that more at the end of the show, actually, because I do want to get into some of those moves specifically. But instead of the Saints, this week my chump is going to be the Southwestern Athletic Conference. The SWAC officials announced last Friday, actually, that all 10 teams would participate in the 2014 conference tournament, despite the fact that 4 of the teams are barred from the NCAA tournament play because of poor academic progress rates. In the past, the conference barred those teams from participating in the conference tournament, which earns the winner an automatic berth in the NCAA tournament. This makes perfect sense. If you can't participate in the NCAA, then you can't participate in the conference tournament that allows you to participate in the NCAA tournament. That's just simple arithmetic, you would think. But now the SWAC says, no, that's not going to be the rule. This year, at the insistence of SWAC Commissioner Dewar Sharp, a teleconference that included the presidents of the 10 teams in the conference voted on whether to include the ineligible teams along with the 6 eligible teams. The presidents voted 8-2 to include the teams. The teams that will now be included, that would have been excluded because of the rules, Arkansas Pine Bluff, Mississippi Valley State, Southern, and Grambling. Those are the 4 ineligible teams based on APR violations and penalties that will now be eligible to play in the SWAC tournament. What's going to happen is the eligible teams, the teams that are actually eligible for NCAA play, the one that advances the farthest will then get the NCAA automatic bid. If 2 or more conference teams that are eligible for NCAA tournament play are eliminated in the same round of the conference tournament, then it'll be decided on highest seed going into the tournament. I do not like the NCAA automatic qualifier being decided by tiebreakers and technicalities and going back to the stats. I think it's ridiculous. We're going to talk more about that in the next segment.
Yeah, I'll give
but
you
the
my
SWAC
opinion.
for this ruling is my chump of the week. We want your opinion, by the way, on all of these items. You can text us, 318-745-5622. That phone number is 318-745-5622. Or you can call us, 888-993-7762. That's the Diamond Vault hotline, 888-993-7762.
Not often do we talk about Ivy League basketball on the Nick Brown Show. Not often do we ever talk about the Ivy League. Now, my favorite Ivy League school is obviously Brown. Yeah, named after the family, of course. None of us ever went there. But seriously, Tommy Amaker is a name that many college basketball fans will remember his time playing, and he played in the NCAA tournament and playing with Duke. But last night, Harvard became the first team to reach the NCAA tournament, and they did it on their rival Yale's court. Now, in this day of going places, I'm going to bring that up when we talk about the SWAC and where you move, and they become these great events in a big city, hopefully at a neutral location, unlike Conference USA now going to the home court of El Paso. They do a little bit different in the Ivy League, but you play on campus sites. So you include the students. You know, for Louisiana Tech students or for ULM students, it might be a little bit easier to make it to that conference tournament for ULM in New Orleans than it will be for Louisiana Tech fans to make it out to El Paso. Certainly, maybe LSU students looking to go to Atlanta. But having it on the home court, on the campus, well, Harvard goes into Yale, such a rivalry, Harvard and Yale, and won the first bid. They won last night, won the Ivy League, automatic bid, no conference tournament. So they won it last night at Yale's home court. So congratulations to the Crimson as they punch their ticket in Tommy Amaker. That's my champ of the week.
Nice. They didn't make my champ, but it is worth noting here, and you're going to hear about it later on in the show during my Louisiana Tech Minute. But Louisiana Tech, of course, did clinch the Conference USA championship. We're going to talk about that a little bit later on. I just want to say what a nice situation it was, though, last night, though. They had the net-cutting ceremony there in the Thomas Assembly Center. Coach Mike White and squad were there. They addressed the fans, and then it was a great video reel that kind of highlight or showcased that last game against Rice, the clinching game against Rice, and the trip to Houston itself.
Yeah, certainly great because you do that on the road, and certainly even though, you know, Conference USA is a more regional conference, it's still tough to make it out to some places. So that's glad they brought that back. So kudos to whoever, and 2 thumbs up. I certainly had champ nominations for Champ of the Week that had the idea of bringing that back because really, to be honest with you, I don't think I've heard of anyone doing that before when they win it on the road, to having the net cutting. You know, you could have it on the court.
I could be wrong, but I don't believe anything like that happened last year, any kind of ceremony like
I
that.
do not remember
so it was
that.
nice.
So it was very nice, and definitely a congratulations to Louisiana Tech clinching their share of the Conference USA championship. Well, we're going to take a break and listen to the Nick Brown Show on ESPN 97.7 FM. Go ahead and refill that coffee cup. I'm going to do the same. We'll be back right after this break.
tired of calling a service company and getting the runaround? Or sitting at home waiting for the technician to arrive when your appointment was 2 hours earlier? If so, give us a call. Hi, I'm Jay Martin with Dubach Air and Heat. We offer dependable, qualified, on-time service at competitive pricing. We are licensed and insured, plus we always strive to offer friendly personal service. We know your time is valuable, so trust all your heating and cooling needs to the company that treats our customers like we want to be treated. Call Dubach Air and Heat at 777-3637.
Hi, I'm Kenny Gallion, branch manager for Bancorp South Bank in Ruston. What if you could create a bank that's just right for your business? A bank with easy-to-use tools to manage your business, like making deposits from your office, and a special relationship with a banker who can make decisions locally. Of course, you'd want your bank to be a one-stop shop for all your financial needs, both business and personal. With Bancorp South, you have a bank that's just right for your business. Bancorp South, we're right where you are. Member FDIC.
Hi, folks. Mark Kramer here. You mean the Mark Kramer? That's right, the Mark Kramer. Oh, I see. It's really him, guys. I know what you're thinking.
Yo, Mark Kramer, how did you get so awesome?
That's a good question. I know this may be hard for you to believe, but I wasn't always this cool. It's true. I didn't always drip with swag. And normally, I wouldn't tell you my secret, really not how I roll. But it wasn't until the Diamond Vault came along that Mark Kramer became Mark Kramer. Trey Parker and his top flight staff will help you find the rings and watches, settings, and exclusive Simon G jewelry that will make that special someone go. The Diamond Vault, 1217 North 18th Street in Monroe. So much more than diamonds.
Warning, going to the Diamond Vault will not make your name end in...
You know what that sound means. That's right. It's time for the Nick Brown Show, and it's time for Daylight Donuts. Ruston Daylight Donuts is your first choice for delicious, always fresh, pillowy, plump donuts. Ruston Daylight Donuts has glazed or chocolate donuts, cinnamon rolls, bear claws, twists, breakfast sandwiches, and much, much more. For your convenience, they offer dine-in or drive-through services. You can even phone your order in at 255-2041. Ruston Daylight Donuts, located 1.5 miles north of I-20. Start your Saturday off right with the Nick Brown Show and Daylight Donuts.
One of the great things about halftime has been the guests we've been able to get on the show. Gus Cattengill, Taffy Sanye, Eric Adelson from Yahoo Sports, Tyrone Hughes, Freddie Coleman, Joe Horn, Christy Dosh, sports business analyst for ESPN, Kyle Turley, Adam Kramer from Kegs and Eggs, Josina Anderson, Dave Miller from National Football Post. And the thing is, this is just the beginning. Halftime with Nick Harrison. Now Fridays at 2 p.m. on ESPN 97.7, ESPN977.com, and the Red Peach Radio app for iPhone and Android.
There's a long line of cars and they're trying to get through.
Saturday morning, sports, and the Nick Brown Show. You can't beat it. You can call us at 888-993-7762. Email sports@ESPN977.com. And become a fan of the Nick Brown Show on Facebook. Now, back to the show.
Welcome back to the Nick Brown Show. Appreciate you waking up early, refilling that coffee cup. We're at the Depot, Ruston's only downtown coffee shop. Come by and get a complimentary cup of coffee and a wonderful daylight donut. Every week we're going to be here on Saturday from 9 to 11, so come out and join us at Ruston's only downtown coffee shop.
That reminds me, Nick, I want to tell all of our listeners, remind them, we had the interview last week with the executive director, Rhonda Branch, but the Susan G. Komen Foundation sponsoring the Color Me for a Cure 5K race in downtown Ruston next Saturday. You still got time to register. And we'll have links for that on our website, on our Facebook page, facebook.com/Nick Brown Show later on today. But my wife and I are going to be running, and we're going to have a lot of fun.
Wait a minute.
Well, we're going to be walking.
Okay, there you go. There you go.
That time.
Okay.
I will jog sometimes there too.
There's a big difference between a jog and a run. So make sure you clarify that, because if you say run, I will bring up my chump of the week for you lying to the public.
Very good point.
But I want to tell people, Joel, about Dubach Air and Heat.
All right.
They're the official air and heat of the Nick Brown Show. And the great thing about it, you heard their ad a few minutes ago. dependable service. But the thing that impresses me the most, and I say it week after week, because not only are they a sponsor on the show, they repair the air conditioner and heater at my house as well. And when they tell you they're going to be there, they show up early. So you better be ready. Now, they're not going to make you sit around and wait, and so you put all the kids' activities on hold because they're coming, and then 3 hours later, you've all been there. That's not the way it operates at Dubach Air and Heat. Call Jay or Melanie Martin at 255-5828. Again, 255-5828. That's Dubach Air and Heat. They're the official air and heat of the Nick Brown Show, and that is dependable service. Really great folks at Dubach Air and Heat.
Absolutely, and we appreciate all our sponsors for making the Nick Brown Show possible every Saturday morning here on ESPN 97.7. Call us. Give us your opinion on all the topics of today. We've had the champs and chumps. We're going to be getting in here in just a couple of minutes to this SWAC APR decision. We want your opinion. 318-745-5622 for text messages. That's 318-745-5622. Or call us on the Diamond Vault hotline, 888-993-7762. I'm going to read you a quote here as we get started on this, Nick, from the SWAC Commissioner Dewar Sharp. He says, "Today we received the approval from the NCAA Division I men's and women's basketball committees to amend our men's and women's basketball automatic qualification policy for the NCAA tournament. The adopted bylaw, which allows all 10 member institutions to participate in the SWAC tournament, will be used to determine which SWAC member institution will receive the conference automatic qualification to represent the conference in the NCAA tournaments for each respective sport. The previous policy restricted several current SWAC institutions from participating in postseason play due to academic progress rates restrictions. As it relates to the upcoming basketball tournament, the NCAA issued a statement acknowledging the acceptance of the SWAC's proposed bylaw changes by stating that the Division I men's and women's basketball committees will allow the conference to amend its automatic qualifying policy for the 2014 championships only. This is only going to affect this year. This could be a readdress next season. The conference basketball tournament for both men and women will still determine the automatic berths into both NCAA championships. The eligible team that advances furthest in the conference tournament will receive the automatic berth to the NCAA championships. In the event of a tie, for example, all tournament-eligible teams are eliminated in the same round. The automatic berths will then go to the highest-seeded team. When I first posted this on the Facebook page, and I said, I missed this story for this week, but it's an early chump choice for next week for Joel, you commented almost immediately and said, hey, this could be a champ situation. Let's look at these teams and how it's affected. Right off the top, I've already stated my opinion. To me, you're changing the rules midstream. I never like changing the rules in the middle of a contest, and that's exactly what's happened here. They've changed the situation for the teams that had gone through the regular procedures and expected to now have perhaps the highest seed. We're going to get to those teams affected in a minute. But you tell me, Nick, why, in what light could this be a good thing?
Well, you know what, and I did change my stance. I did post that, immediately after that, because you often have players that are penalized for the actions of others. It's such choice. You've been through school. If your older brother was very good, you were treated well because you were expected to act the same way. But on the negative side, if your older brother or older sister misbehaved and they expected you to do the same, so maybe you were watched a little harder. So we've all been penalized for the actions of others. Now, such is the case with these APR penalties. Now, the thing that I do not like about a situation like over at Louisiana Monroe, Keith Richard, known him for years, coach at Louisiana Tech, very successful basketball coach, moved on to LSU as an assistant, now back at his alma mater at ULM, and the mess that he inherited. And the fact that the guy that created that mess was able to leave and go to a higher-paying job, it just doesn't seem right. But that's an entirely different issue. But you have players penalized for the fact that the guys that were on scholarship before them did not graduate. Now, I could bring up a million things, Joel, because the reason you look at this APR penalty, academic progress rate, what kind of rate are they making as far as towards their graduation rates, the number of players they bring in, and the number of players that walk across that stage with a diploma. Now, so I come in as a freshman, and I can't go to the conference tournament because 3 years ago you didn't graduate. That just doesn't seem right. But then you look at it, as I look now, there's parts of this that I do not like, because with Louisiana Monroe, could they not have challenged that? Could the Sun Belt not have challenged this? And what I say is, why do this now, and why do this so late in the year? Why not know this at the start of the season? All of these things come into play. Now, the part that that was the early mindset was you have guys that are being penalized for this that have nothing to do with it. And even coaches' administrations that are being, and has it been used against them in recruiting? Absolutely. Let's just say if two people were going towards, were going to our same recruit, and we're going to recruit you, and I say, well, you come to our place, you can go to the conference tournament. If you sign with them, they still have 2 more years of penalties where they can't go to their conference tournament. Well, certainly that would come into play. That would affect recruiting. Certainly could. Also, the problem that I have is all these one-and-done guys. They're not graduate. I know they're going to the NBA, and they're making more in their first year in the NBA than they would 10 to 20 years with their business degree or whatever degree they come out with. I understand that. But does the NCAA even consider one-and-done penalties? So, I mean, it's not like Kentucky and Louisville and all these places that have these one-and-done players. How is that not affecting their APR rate? So I'm looking at that, the double standard on how we look at the APR rate. And you could do all the research and show where the APR penalties are coming from and then look at the athletic budgets of those said schools. But you can make that. So those are the reasons, my initial part about being, wait, not so fast. But then I looked at the part about this that I did not like. There are 10 institutions in the SWAC. 4 were ineligible. So that means that there were 6 that were eligible.
That had done everything right.
Yes, or didn't have any penalties.
Yeah.
That's a big difference.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Very good point.
Okay. Now, here's the thing. Don't allow the guys who are ineligible to vote. That's like you're in trouble in school and you can't come to the party, but we're going to take a class vote to see if those guys that have been in trouble can come to the party, and we're going to allow the guys that are in trouble to vote. Of course they're going to vote.
If you're having a poker game with some friends at home, and you've decided, hey, we're only going to have the one initial buy-in, we're not going to play all night long. If you're out, you're out, and that's the end of it. And then you get 3 or 4 guys out, and they start hollering around the outside edges of the table, hey, what about a second buy-in? Shouldn't we take a vote? Don't we need to take a vote? You're 100% right, Nick. You can't change the rules in the middle of the stream. Let's talk about who this affects. Alabama State. Under the old format, Alabama State would currently rank as the top seed in the SWAC. But the inclusion of both Southern, who has already clinched the regular season title, and Arkansas Pine Bluff, which is currently 4th in the standings, changes the whole format. Under the current standings, Southern and Arkansas Pine Bluff, they would be the highest-seeded teams on one side of the bracket, increasing the odds that an ineligible team could reach the tournament championship game. That's what SWAC officials were worried about in the first place. And I said the SWAC was my chump. I'm going to put this on the NCAA, too.
No, you're not, and I'm going to tell you why. I will tell you why.
Why would the NCAA, because the SWAC would not have made this change if they hadn't gotten allowances from the NCAA, oh, yeah, sure, we'll just take whoever you say is the top team.
All right, so there you go with the NCAA. First of all, the NCAA defines postseason play as anything that occurs after your conference tournament, if you have one. So, in other words, postseason play, really the SWAC could have allowed them to participate on their own free will, but they would have been running the gambit of what is the NCAA going to do
with the winner.
So exactly. So here's the thing that clarify that. I want to go back to my previous point again, though. One thing I want to say, I think that if you're going to have 10 teams, 4 that are ineligible, that means 6. I think the vote should have been 4-2. There should only have been 6 members voting, because I think that's who really should have decided this. You knew that it was going to be a 4-0 vote right off the bat with the ineligible team. So I found it surprising. There are a lot of things in here to question. But, yes, to a certain degree, you are correct. Basically, the SWAC said, hey, we want to have our cake and eat it too, because we don't want to allow these teams to participate. I'm going to get how I'm talking about having your cake and eat it too, and not be penalized when you had that, because there's one team from the SWAC going to the NCAA tournament. And we know that that means money for your conference. But here's the thing. Let's get to the brass tacks of this. Number one, conference tournaments are very fun. I understand that. And I'm glad the more people that are allowed to participate, the better. Now, I wasn't allowed to participate in the conference tournament my senior year of college because we were on probation. Okay? And here's the thing. We were the host. Now, how is that? You can't go. Alabama and Auburn were the host. It was in Birmingham, and Auburn was not allowed to participate because of NCAA sanctions. Now, NCAA sanctions and APR penalties are entirely different, but my point is I know what it feels like not to go to a conference tournament. So I'm glad that guys get to experience this. But let's look at the real reason. SWAC normally holds their tournament in Garland, Texas. Been to that arena. It's a quaint little arena. It's not the biggest in the world, but it's absolutely perfect. I mean, you could look even having the Conference USA tournament in the Dallas area. And we say Dallas area, that's just a lot of places. But now they've moved to Houston. That is a bigger arena. The Toyota
Center, yeah.
Okay, so now, how good of a crowd is it going to look if you really only have 6 teams going? Number one, let's look at this. Cities bid to host tournaments. They bid to host conference tournaments. Obviously, Houston got this tournament over Garland, Texas.
Right.
The economic impact of having 4 additional teams. Okay, first of all, that's the team and their players and their managers. You're looking at 20 people. So that's 80 more people. Then they're going to take cheerleaders, so that's probably at least 10 people, so that's 40 more, so you're 120. You take a pep band of about 20 people, so that's 80 more people, and now you're looking at 200 more plus people, not to mention fans. So the economic impact for Houston is greater because of this ruling. So, and also now it looks better. You got 10 teams coming to Houston as opposed to 6. What was the real reason? Was the reason for the economic impact, you've moved to a bigger arena, or was the reason so we could have 4 more teams experience postseason play? But bottom line, in this decision, if this is something, you should have been thinking about this in October when you're getting ready to have Midnight Madness, because does that affect, if I know that I'm not going to see your team again, doesn't that affect the way that I coach on the court versus you?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and now here's the thing. To me, the perfect situation, the perfect storm that this would never happen again, let 2 ineligible teams reach the finals. Now, back to your seeding. If you want to do this fair, then the bottom 4 seeds should be those bottom 4 teams.
Ineligible teams.
Regardless
of their regular season record.
Or restructure the tournament so that they have to knock themselves out. Have an early entry where you have those 4 teams playing so the possibility is reduced and you only have really 2 teams. You know what I'm saying? So in other words, have those 4 play in with 2. But bottom line, this thing was just totally crazy. Then I go back to all the other teams out there that have missed their conference tournament, and the only reason was APR penalties. Now, there's a difference between NCAA sanctions and APR penalties. Go back and look. I would be upset if now I've graduated and my team didn't go to my senior year because of an APR penalty. Why didn't ULM? Why didn't the Sun Belt petition to have this go on? So it's really crazy. And I've really heard no one stand up for this.
Well, the one bit of class in all of this to me was the Alabama State head coach, Lewis Jackson. He was quoted by the USA Today. He said that it seemed ridiculous to consider changing the rules and allowing all 10 teams to play just 3 weeks before the end of the regular season. It was surprising that with just 6 games remaining, the format changed, Jackson said. But I just roll on because the decision makers are the presidents. I think we may have voted against it, but you've just got to continue to play and focus on the things that you can control. We're trying to figure out how to win in the next ball game. He also said it's been decided, and they've come up with a format on what happens if one of the teams that can't go wins, Jackson said. It is surprising, but we've got to move forward with the hope that it'll be a great tournament and that whoever wins it, hopefully, it'll be a team that can go. Here's my question, Nick. You talked about that move to the Toyota Center in Houston. How much pressure was there from the sponsors? How much pressure was there from the host stadium? How much pressure was there from, where was this decision being made? Was it really being made by the presidents about player participation, about the student athlete and their life and experiences, or was it just an economic decision? And it seems like an awfully cold economic decision when you've got the NCAA embroiled in so many different battles on so many different fronts right now. You think about the player safety issues, the ongoing issue with players wanting a larger cut of the revenues, wanting some sort of payback and remuneration. Then you combine it with moves like this, and you see why people pile on the NCAA. You see why so many people come out in support of those player labor movements, for instance.
No, not me. But I mean, I understand. I understand. But here's the deal.
They look cold.
Here's the thing, though. I don't think so. I think the NCAA has to protect their interest as for. So they had a petition for that. They could have said, you know what? No, if you're running the risk of doing this, and you could have said they could have said, no, we're going to take whoever wins your tournament.
Yeah, you take 10 teams.
And if that team is ineligible, then you're running the risk of not getting an automatic qualifier to the NCAA tournament. And I don't know what kind of legality, what issues, contract laws they would have been violating there, but that would have been another at-large for somebody, you know. And then you go back and look. Normally, let's face it, normally a SWAC will probably get a 15-16 seed, so then you're having a first-round game between an opponent of a team maybe that's not a 15 or 16 seed. But I think more SWAC, I think more with the timing. I think obviously the NCAA under the gun because you know it's March. I mean, as the late in the year, but you know I've heard nothing. You know, there is a positive. The positive are there's four teams that get to go experience postseason play, and for those seniors or juniors that haven't been in quite a while, good for them. But I think just the precedent. So is this going to happen every year? Is this going to happen next year? But I think you really need to look at the APR penalties. And I understand that. I mean, because obviously you want colleges to be about graduating players and not just using as an athletic, you know, you look at Lynn Bias, the guy that passed away at Maryland, Lefty Drizel, in 1986. When they looked at his final transcript, he was 21 credits shy of graduating, but he had used up all his athletic eligibility. So that was somebody who had been in college for 4 years and with 21 credits shy, and I think you do the math, that's 5 a year. That means what were you taking one class? How were you able to remain eligible? And I understand that point of it. I understand why you need the APR penalties. But let's look and readdress how we deal with this with one-and-done situations. I don't think the APR penalties will go away, or should go away. But look at those and how they're doled out across it, and the qualification teams have met. But so late in the year.
It is, and again, it's the midstream nature of the decision that really bothers me the most. I'll tell you this, Nick, you make a broader point, or you raise a broader point that I am very, very open to discussion and to potential change in the NCAA on, and that's sanctions for coaches. The fact of the matter is that these coaches are the ones that are the CEOs of the program in most of the cases. And while it's true that people on their staff can occasionally make violations of the NCAA rules without their notice or without their knowledge, if you're the boss, the buck stops with you. And yet, coach after coach after coach, what do? They leave a program for greener pastures at a bigger paycheck somewhere else and leave the APR issues and all of the violations and all of the penalties at the university with a handful of students that didn't even work under that coach. And that is completely unacceptable. There needs to be some sort of repercussions.
Well, I'll tell you how you do that. You have a show cause penalty if there's an NCAA violation. Bruce Pearl. Now, it's funny because what Bruce Pearl really brought him down, you had all the too much texting, or a picture of Aaron Kraft, now a guard at Ohio State, a senior guard there, was at a cookout in Knoxville, Tennessee. The things that were once violations are no longer violations, and I think that's one thing that makes it difficult. But if you had a show cause penalty for APR rates, but I think now, as you see, it was obviously more emphasis placed on academics. Maybe an institution would not hire a guy, or maybe if you had, just like you had a show cause if there were NCAA violations, you had a show cause penalty for APR violations. And it gets back to the point of being the point of college athletics, to educate young men and women, student athletes. They're student athletes first. That's why my champ of the week was Harvard, making their ticket, punching their ticket to the big dance. And it becomes that. I'm not saying it becomes less about winning, because bottom line, nobody's going to buy season tickets to watch a math class. Not going to happen. I understand that. But here's the thing. If APR penalties followed coaches, then I think you get back to more about academics. And you know what? So what, Joel? You're failing 2 classes. We're going to play a big game on the road in Lexington, but you're not going, because I'm going to be held accountable for how well you do in the classroom. And I think if you took the show cause penalties that you get for NCAA violations and attached them to a coach as well, then I think so a show cause for APR, that might be the answer.
I agree with you 100%, Nick. I think that might be a great solution to this. I think if you leave it as it is, you're going to continue to strengthen the arguments for folks that say there's no difference between the NCAA and the D-League of the NBA or a development league for the NFL, all bankrolled on the backs of these students and student loans. The fact of the matter is, they've got to make a choice. The NCAA has to make a choice, and I think they need to stride out confidently in the direction of student athletes once again. Student athletes once again. But
here's the thing. I think when you go back and you look, because when you do that, that's why I'm so against one-and-done players. You can call us on the Diamond Ball hotline at 888-993-7762. That's why I'm against one-and-done. Because think about it. Even if you have just one-and-done player the trickle-down effect, somewhere down the line, somebody didn't get a scholarship. And that's the case. And so you look, and I got to tell you what, I'm going to bring up another chump deal because there's something else I want to bring up. I think we're up against the break, and by the way, I'm out of coffee, so that means it's time for us to pay a few bills. But you could go over this all the time. What is wrong with the NCAA? But I think you look and see, make it more about the student-athlete, more about their education. And then you know what? So what? You know, you don't have some gaudy record. And you're there. You certainly want to win ball games. I understand that. You want to win ball games. You want to be competitive. But if everybody's doing it the right way, and I think you could clean it up. But I think college basketball could actually lead that. But I think one-and-dones have to go, in my opinion.
I agree with you. And the one-and-done in particular, we're going to see another push to get that changed very, very soon. I think Commissioner Silver, the new commissioner of the NBA, that's high on his priority list. It was something that David Stern wanted, was to move that to 2, even 3 years eventually perhaps. And I think they're going to be able to move that. What it's going to take, though, is some new additions in the D-League and some exceptions for players who want to go overseas or to the developmental league.
Bottom line, here's the deal. If you want to go overseas, that's your priority. You can do just your prerogative. Do what you want to do.
You can't do both. You can't go back and forth.
But here's the thing. You tell me if I go to college for 1 year, and then I go to the NBA, I'm going to be making $750,000. And then you tell me I'm going to go to the D-League and I'm going to make $24,000. You're going to have to come up a little bit. I know the D-League can't pay that much money because what you're going to do, you're just going to sit out at home for a year and then try and do that. So I understand that. So something has to be worked out. But I tell you what really needs to be worked out is more coffee. Listen to the Nick Brown Show on ESPN 97.7 FM. And look, if you're not a coffee drinker, that's okay. There's hot chocolate. There's soft drinks here at the depot. Even have all the frozen lattes, espressos. Come out and join us in person. It's the Nick Brown Show. Come see Joel and I every Saturday from 9 to 11. Ruston's only downtown coffee shop. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back.
Just like thunder, and everything looks so complete when you walk out on the street. Got the wind catching your feet, sends you flying.
If you're one of those people that never slows down, you sure don't have time to take care of cleaning your clothes. Busy people can rely on the Cleaners of Ruston to get the job done right. The Cleaners of Ruston offers expert shirt laundry, alterations, draperies, and bedspread cleaning, leather and suede cleaning, and we're your wedding gown specialist as well. Stop by either location, and with our covered drive-thru, we'll come out to you and receive your clothes without you ever having to leave your vehicle. The Cleaners of Ruston, 105 South Monroe, and in the Pinecrest Shopping Center next to Super One.
Hey Bulldog fans, this is Adam McGurk, the director of LTAC, the Louisiana Tech Athletic Club. It's your club for your program. All Bulldog and Lady Texter fans are welcome to join the team behind the teams and help change the face of Tech Athletics. If you're interested in investing in Tech Athletics, go online to LawTechSports.com or call the Marbury Alumni Center at 255-7950. Go Dogs.
Broken window glass? Ruston Glass Doctor can fix those panes. Replace the glass, not the window. Ruston Glass Doctor can handle insulated glass and double panes too. Call 232-3012. Ruston Glass Doctor. We fix your panes. Not sure if your vehicle needs a new windshield or just a chip repair? Call Ruston Glass Doctor. Whether we come to you or in our shop, you can trust your safety to our experts. Call 232-3012. Ruston Glass Doctor. We fix your panes. Willow Glen Drive, Ruston.
Hey guys, the gals aren't the only ones that care about their look. Let Adrienne Russell at La Bella Salon give you just the right hairstyle. Adrienne knows hairstyles. She's been voted best stylist in the Delta. Go ahead, schedule an appointment today so you can look your best. Just call La Bella Salon, 202-5848. La Bella Salon, 105 Reynolds Drive, next to Skip Russell State Farm in Ruston. What are you waiting for? Now's a great time to give them a call. La Bella Salon, 202-5848. Walk-ins welcome.
This week in ULM athletics, in Game 1 of the weekend series at Samford in Birmingham, ULM tied the contest at 3-3 in the top of the fifth, but Samford used a pair of big innings in the second half of the game to claim a 9-3 win Friday night at Joe Lee Griffin Field. ULM reliever Josh Leone, he's 1-2 on the season, and was tagged with the loss after allowing 4 runs on 7 hits with 2 strikeouts in 4.1 innings. Game 2 of the series is set for a 2 p.m. first pitch today. ULM is expected to send redshirt sophomore Alex Hermling to the hill, while Samford will likely counter with senior right-hander Alex Alex Milazzo. For updates, follow the squad on Twitter at ULM_BSB. Finally, having already clinched its spot in the Sun Belt Conference Championships, the ULM men's basketball team will look to lock up the 7th seed today when it travels to UALR for a 7 p.m. tip at the Jack Stevens Center. ULM can clinch the number 7 seed with a win or a Troy loss. And that would mean facing either UALR or UT Arlington, depending upon UTA's outcome. Don't forget to catch Hawk Talk with Nick White Mondays at noon. You can tune in right here or online at ESPN977.com and cheer on your Warhawks in person by calling 318-342-3ULM or visit ULMWarhawks.com.
We've got the big stick, the big mouth, at one low discount price. KNBB Tubac Monroe, ESPN Radio 97.7.
In my mind, I'm gone to Carolina. Can't you see the sunshine? Can't you just feel the moonshine? And ain't it just like a friend of mine to hit me from behind? Yes, I'm gone to Carolina in my mind.
Local sports talk, Saturday morning style on the Nick Brown Show. You can call us at 888-993-7762. Email sports@ESPN977.com. And become a fan of the Nick Brown Show on Facebook. Now, back to the show.
Welcome back to the Nick Brown Show. Great. James Taylor. In my mind, I'm going to Carolina. And certainly, you remember, it was usually an NBC game. It was on Tobacco Road. It was before the Dean Dome. Watching North Carolina play Duke. And you could go through the rest of Tobacco Road, watching them go to Winston-Salem and play Wake Forest. And a part of that, a fixture of that, was Dean Smith. And the national championships, the players that he coached, Phil Ford, Michael Jordan. One of the neatest things about Dean Smith I found over the years is that one of the first coaches to go out and recruit a player, and then he would try and play as close to that recruit's hometown. Had a player by the name of Peter Chilcutt. Actually, Joe, you like this, from Utah, Alabama. Pete Chilcutt left that area and went to North Carolina, played for the Tar Heels. And then North Carolina played at the University of Alabama, and I was like, why is North Carolina coming to Alabama? You got a basketball school coming. You know, they go anywhere. And that was the reason. But Dean Smith, what he has meant for college basketball over the years, and retired, I think, way too early, 1997. He retired. And I always wondered if he got away from the game too early, left as the tops and wins, and suffered from dementia. Came out a few years ago, and Alzheimer's. The other day I was thinking about Dean Smith, and I went to, and there was a great article. I just happened to, on the same day that I was thinking about Dean Smith, there was an article on ESPN.com written by a guy by the name of Tommy Tomlinson. Never heard of him before. Writes for the Charlotte Observer, and also writes, freelance writer now, kind of breaking away from the Observer. But a wonderful article. And this article captured just the spirit of Dean Smith, the things that he led back in the South during the Jim Crow laws, and what he did recruiting the first African-American to play for North Carolina, and going through just his life now. A very touching tribute. And the guy's name is Tommy Tomlinson. You go check it out. But I was able to, he couldn't come on live today, but it was such a great article. Normally we don't have that many taped interviews here on the Nick Brown Show, but this one was really special, but enjoyed it. So here's the interview, Joel, that I had this week with Tommy Tomlinson, but certainly a great article. And you just remember, you know, Carolina Blue, and certainly when Duke didn't allow me entrance into that prestigious university, higher academic learning, made me pull for those Tar Heels even more. So here's the interview that we had this week.
Joining us this morning on the Nick Brown Show is Tommy Tomlinson. He's written for the Charlotte Observer. Tommy, great piece you wrote on ESPN.com about the life of former North Carolina basketball coach Dean Smith.
Well, thank you, Nick. I really appreciate that.
You know, what led to an article on Dean Smith? I know you live in Charlotte, and now you're a freelance writer, but why the article now? Because it's ironic that I was thinking about Dean Smith the very day that I read your article.
Oh, well, that's the, great minds think alike, I guess. I had written a story on Dean, or co-written a story when he was first, when it was first made public that he was starting to struggle with dementia, and that was about 4 years ago. And then this past fall, they announced that he was going to get the Presidential Medal of Freedom, which is this big, the highest civilian honor you can get in this country. And so I thought that might be a time to sort of revisit his life, see how he was doing, see how his family was holding up, and all that sort of thing. And that's sort of how I got into the story to begin with.
Well, reading the article, and I recommend all of our listeners to go read that. It's on ESPN.com. A lot of times when someone's suffering from dementia, they tend to lock all the reporters out. But you had really inside information. You have a close relationship with the Smith family, or we just allowed this because you brought in, you even talked about the family pets. I thought it was really a touching article. We're getting into more detail of the article, but really, how did you develop that relationship with the Smith family?
I didn't really have a relationship with them before the story. And I think I was just started asking, if I could talk to them about Dean and see how he was doing and all that sort of thing. I think I benefited a lot from the timing of it. They knew because he was getting this Presidential Medal of Freedom that his name was going to be back in the public eye for a while. And other people had done some, kind of smaller stories on him right around that time. And so I was just kind of persistent, and I think eventually they decided that I was somebody who was going to, treat him right, treat him fairly, and so they, folks decided to talk to me.
One thing you talked about in the article, and I think it was something that entered my mind, when Dean Smith retired, I thought, I remember all those Tobacco Road rivalries with Duke and all the great games, and of course a joke about holding Michael Jordan under 20 points. But when I read your article, you asked a question, you touched on it. Did he retire too early? And I think that's something that we all question, but his thoughts on his retirement.
Yeah, he was, I believe 66 when he retired, right around there. And I know Roy Williams, who's a coach now, obviously, a few times over the years, the Dean told him he retired too early. And, at the time, though, Dean talked about not having the energy to sort of get into the season with the intensity that he thought his players deserved. And so I think at the time he was sort of worn out, but when you retire at something, I think you get this kind of surge of energy, and so you think maybe I should have had 1 or 2 more years or something like that. I think he also wanted to make sure that he turned over the program to Bill Guthridge, who had been his loyal assistant for 30 years. And so I think that the timing was right at the moment. I think lots of people who have jobs they really loved think they retired too early. And I think he had some of those same regrets.
One thing interesting in reading the article, talking to Tommy Tomlinson, he's a freelance writer, lives in Charlotte, North Carolina. You talked about him still going to the Dean Dome, the building basically that he built. And I think that was really touching, how he still has an office in the Dean Dome.
Yeah, he took a little office there after he retired. He would watch games, draw plays, even if Roy asked him to. And so he's had that office there ever since he retired in '97. Over the last few years, as the dementia has sort of set in, I think it's become an important part of his routine. Just a place for him to go to see somewhere familiar. He has lunch there a lot, and then a lot of former players and assistants and people he knows, they know they can come by there and see him. And so I think now it's a big part of his routine to come by there. And, some days he knows what's going on and some days he doesn't. But I think that's a big part of his sort of daily routine.
How enjoyable was it to talk to some of the players? I know you quoted Phil Ford, who's always been special in Dean Smith's eyes, but that was really neat to hear his former players. You knew, sometimes when you have a coach that is so successful and the success that he has had, how his former players respond, but just the great words that they had about Dean Smith and the amount of respect that they still have for him.
Yeah, there's so many players who, love him, consider him to really be a second father in many ways. I know Charles Scott, the great player, the first black player that Dean recruited, and the first black star player in the ACC. I was trying to get him to tell some stories about Dean, and he just stopped and said, to tell you a story about Dean is to tell you the outline of my life. Everything I've done has basically been because of him. And he just inspires this incredible devotion among all these former players, all these former people who coached under him, the people who worked with him in the basketball office, longtime friends, all that sort of thing. He was really good. Eddie Fogler, who was one of his assistants for a long time, said that Dean Smith, it was just in his DNA to build teams. He knew how to build teams. And I think that larger team of his, you know, former players and coaches and stuff, those people are still tremendously devoted to him.
You know, one thing you caught yourself, and I'm glad you did, you called him Charlie Scott, and then you called him Charles Scott. I want you to share that story that was in your article.
Well, you know, Scott was a four-year star at North Carolina, played in the NBA and the ABA for 10 years, and all during that time, everybody called him Charlie. You know, if you look up his stats, all-time stats, he's under Charlie Scott. But he always preferred to be called Charles. And one of the things that he appreciated and admired about Dean is that Dean always called him Charles. And so it was just a measure of respect and of acknowledgement of that's what he preferred to be called. And so, you know, Charles Scott has never forgotten that.
And you mentioned one piece in the article, talking to Tommy Tomlinson, wrote a very touching tribute to Dean Smith. You can read it on ESPN.com. But at the time when Dean Smith first became the coach at North Carolina, Jim Crow laws were still in effect, and there was a story where he took a young African-American male into basically an all-white restaurant. I'm not sure if he was the head coach or an assistant at the time, but nobody said anything to Dean Smith during that time, and I think that was really moving forward Dean Smith ahead of his time.
Yeah, that was back in the late 50s, before a lot of the big civil rights movement had even gotten started in a lot of places. And there was a segregated restaurant in Chapel Hill called The Pines. It was probably the nicest place in town at the time. And that's where the Tar Heel team ate their team meals. And so Dean and his pastor one night decided that they were going to take a black theology student with them over to The Pines and see, you know, what would happen, see if they could integrate the restaurant. And so when they went there, you know, from the accounts I've heard over the years, the staff and the management was not thrilled that they were there. But they knew that Dean, they knew he was an assistant coach with the basketball team, which was a really big deal, and they didn't say anything. And so he and his pastor and this theology student down and had dinner together, and that basically integrated the Pines, and it led to a lot of the integration of sort of the public places in Chapel Hill. And Dean over the years has been really reluctant to tell that story. In fact, he's gotten upset a couple of times when people have found out that he did that and wrote about it, because he thought it was just something that he ought to do and not make a big deal about it. And that's, you know, part of what people admire about him.
You know, I think one thing that you took from that article, and one thing just talking to you today, is the fact that he preached teams so much, but that was a part of his personal life, because like that story that you just mentioned, he didn't want any credit for that whatsoever, and that's what you see, that he actually practiced what he preached. And then also there was a big ceremony, but they kind of, I won't say tricked him, but they didn't let him know that the ceremony was for him, because he probably wouldn't have participated in it.
Right. They had a few years ago, they had the 100th anniversary of Tar Heel basketball, and this was when Dean was, you know, starting to struggle pretty badly with dementia. And so they did a tribute to him at halftime of the game, but they didn't tell him they were going to do it. And so they had a video, and he was in the tunnel and didn't know what was going on. And so after the video, he walked out there with Roy Williams, Bill Guthridge, and Eddie Fogler, who were his three assistants when they won the national championship in '82. And so they all walked out to half court together. And when they got there, the other three guys sort of took a step back, and Dean was out there kind of by himself, and just got this huge ovation from the crowd. And then all these former players who were there, they had an alumni game that night. All these former players came up to him and hugged him and sort of loved on him and told him how much he meant to them. And it was a really nice moment.
You know, one thing you touched on in the end, and you always wonder about the battles between head coaches. You see them, the fierce battles in the ACC, but Mike Krzyzewski, you know, he had a touching piece, and it almost felt somewhat reading that he was almost remorseful for all the battles that they've had and how there was conflict between them, because he felt like there really is a peace between those two guys now. And I think with Dean's dementia, he's glad that they had that peace.
Yeah, you know, Krzyzewski got there in 1980, 80 or 81, and Dean had already been coach there in North Carolina for 18 years, 19 years by that point, already well established, and Krzyzewski was having to kind of build Duke up. And so they had a lot of, you know, sort of clashes on the court, and, you know, there was a famous game where Dean sort of went over and banged the scorer's table and gave his team 20 more points, you know, accidentally, and that sort of thing, and didn't get a technical for it. And after the game, Krzyzewski talked about the double standard that existed in the ACC. And I think he was probably right about that. And after that, you know, they had a lot of battles on the court, but I think came to respect each other on the court and off the court. And now, you know, Krzyzewski in his office has a photo of he and Dean from a few years ago, and he said, like you said, that he feels like it's two old generals who are now at peace. And that's kind of a touching thing.
Tommy, it was Tommy Tomlinson, a freelance writer out of Charlotte, North Carolina, wrote a wonderful piece. You can read it on ESPN.com. Tommy, a great piece of work. Really enjoyed reading it. Anything in the works, and where can we read more of your writing?
Well, you can find my stuff. If you follow me on Twitter, at Tommy Tomlinson, everything I write, I post there. I've been doing a lot of writing for Forbes magazine's website, writing about sports. You can find me on Forbes. And then just sort of freelance. I do work for, I think I wrote for like 11 different places last year. So if you follow me on Twitter or friend me on Facebook, that's usually the best way to find what I'm up to.
Well, Tommy, I certainly appreciate you joining us on the Nick Brown Show. And I was just thinking about Dean Smith, and that was a great article. And really, with March and March Madness upon us, it was a great time to read that piece.
Well, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for the conversation.
Tommy Tomlinson, guys, great piece. You need to go check that out. I know that certainly you remember Dean Smith and all that he has meant for college basketball, but certainly go read that article. But appreciate Tommy joining us. But, Joel, really good piece.
Great one, and you can find that article. We've got a link now. It's out on our Facebook page, facebook.com/Nick Brown Show. You can find it right there. Like us on Facebook. Keep up with the conversation all week long. Give us some feedback, too, right there on the Facebook page. We'll read your comments on the show here every Saturday morning.
Certainly time for a break, but want to tell you about Bancorp South. They're the official bank of the Nick Brown Show. They're right on the corner, right where you are. Go see them for all your business or personal banking. But that's Bancorp South, the official bank of the Nick Brown Show. Member FDIC. We're going to take that break. We'll be back in just a minute on the Nick Brown Show.
Like a sound of a silent song.
If you're stuck with high monthly car payments and think it's the best you can do, think again. By refinancing your car loan with State Farm Bank, you may be able to save on your monthly payments and have more money to spend on other things. Call State Farm agent Skip Russell at 255-5050 for more information. Skip will help you see how much you could save by refinancing with State Farm Bank. That's Skip Russell at 255-5050 or stop by and see us at 105 Reynolds Drive in Ruston. State Farm Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender.
Keeping area residents comfortable year-round. That's what Jay and Melanie Martin and the staff at Dubach Air and Heat have been doing for years. At Dubach Air and Heat, it's all about service. When you call, you can expect action within 24 hours, and every technician is courteous and neat. They can also give you energy-saving tips that can save you money, and they service all makes and brands. Doing business with Dubach Air and Heat is just the smart thing to do. Dubach Air and Heat, 777-3637, 777-3637.
Made those resolutions. I have a place for you to get in shape. That's All Hours Fitness, and you can get in shape for as little as $19 a month. That's right, less than $1 a day. Trust me, you're worth it. All Hours Fitness, Features elliptical machines with TVs, treadmills with TVs, all the free weights you could want, plus machine weights as well. A women's only area, a kids area. That's All Hours Fitness. Give them a call at 254-0474. They're located at 1305 Commerce Street in Ruston, right behind Brennan Dodge and Jeep.
This week in LSU sports, football will be back in full swing for LSU today as the Tigers open spring drills with the first of what will be 15 workouts over the next 4 weeks at the Charles McClendon practice facility. The Tigers will practice in shorts and helmets for its first 2 practices on Saturday and Monday. Today also marks the start of the 10th spring training under head coach Les Miles, who has led the Tigers to a 95-24 mark in 9 years at LSU. Miles is now the second winningest coach in LSU football history, trailing only College Football Hall of Famer Charles McClendon, who won 137 games in 18 years. LSU honors seniors Siobhan Coleman and Andre Stringer in pregame ceremonies prior to the final home game of the 2013-14 regular season today as the Tigers host Georgia at the Pete Maravich Assembly Center. The ceremony will take place at 3:45 p.m. That's prior to a 4:05 tip for the contest. LSU is 19-11 and 9-8 in the Southeastern Conference, entering the finale, while Georgia is 17-12 and 11-6 in the league. LSU has won 7 straight home SEC games going into today's game. Junior right-hander Aaron Nola set a career high with 12 strikeouts to help lead 4th-ranked LSU to a 10-0 victory Friday night over Purdue at Alex Box Stadium, Skip Bertman Field. LSU returns to the box today in Game 2 of the weekend series versus Purdue. First pitch is set for 6:30 p.m. with Kyle Bowman scheduled to start on the mound for the Tigers. For complete ticket info for LSU sports, visit lsutix.net.
Could have used a few pounds. Tight pants points, hardly renowned. She was a black-haired beauty with big dark eyes and points all her own, sitting way up high.
Thanks for turning that radio on this morning to the Nick Brown Show. You can call us at 888-993-7762 and become a fan of the Nick Brown Show on Facebook. Now, back to the show.
Welcome back to the Nick Brown Show. Appreciate you joining this morning. Certainly in a much better mood now, Joel, because I've gotten some more of that pecan roast. And you know, if you're not a coffee drinker, there's other drinks beside coffee here at the Depot. Ruston's only downtown coffee shop, but I certainly enjoy a nice southern pecan roast, and certainly I really enjoyed doing that interview from Tommy Tomlinson. Appreciate the kind words on our text line. You can always text us or call us on the Diamond Ball hotline, 888-993-7762. Before we get into all the breakdown of what March Madness looks like for our local conferences in the Sun Belt and the SEC as well as Conference USA, you know, there was one story that really was so many chumps this week in sports. And we take your nominations for champs and chumps. You can nominate them on the text line or either on our Facebook page as well. Just like it and post your recommendation for champ and chump. But there was one, Joel, that really stood out, and that is a player is suing. He played at West Virginia. He was a Mountaineer, and certainly had a lot of success under Rich Rodriguez and Mountaineer land, and then Bill Stewart. But Sean Austin's the guy's name, and he's suing the NCAA and other people as well. And you say, well, what's the guy suing the NCAA for? Is it because of injuries? No, it's not. It's not even really because of his likeness, but he's suing the NCAA in 5 major conferences. So now he's stepping out. He's not just suing the university. He's going to go ahead and go after 5 conferences as well, saying that they violated antitrust laws by agreeing to cap the value of an athletic scholarship at less than the actual cost of attending school. Now, when you read that, a lot of things can go through your mind, but let me say that again. He's suing because the value of an athletic scholarship is less than the actual cost of attending school. Now, understand when you're on an athletic scholarship, if you're on, let's say, full athletic scholarship, but that's where we're going. We're not going with partials here. Your room is paid for, Joel, so you got a roof over your head free of charge. Now, what's in that is the power bill, paid for. It's going to have water, such as the case at Sewell Hall, the athletic dormitory that I lived in. You've even had cable TV, as well.
Modern dormitories, you're going to have high-speed internet, probably Wi-Fi, as a matter of fact.
Exactly. So all of that is paid for. Now, you don't go to the bookstore and get your books. You don't even have to register, wait in line, which now you do it online. You don't have to do that. That's done for you. You go to a book room, and they hand you a bag, and it's got Joel Sharpton, Nick Brown on it, and all the books that are needed for your classes are there. And guess what? You got those free. Okay? So I'm thinking, okay, now what is he complaining about? Well, when he means the actual cost of attending school, and he goes on to say this, but it didn't cover little things, Joel, like pizza on the weekend or gas to go to and from his home. That's what he means by the cost of attending school. Now, I have a major problem with this because academic scholar, if you're on an academic scholarship, maybe you were, I was not. If you're on an academic scholarship and it's a full ride, you still have to pay a lot of times for your room and board. Your room and board, that's just covering your books and tuition. So I really have a problem with this because this lawsuit is based on the fact those other things, pizza, going to a movie, those things, and I really don't think an athletic scholarship. I understand what you have. Someone's coming from, a poor background. I understand that, but I don't think that should be a part of your scholarship, and I think this is a frivolous lawsuit. And should that be included in that? But this lawsuit to me is frivolous.
It's like we were talking about earlier, Nick. What's behind this? I think it's some of the sentiment for people that want to side with a player like Shawnee Alston at West Virginia, or former West Virginia football player. I think it's when you talk about the overall money being made. You look at coaches' salaries; some of them earning as much as $7 million a year. The average salary for a major college football coach is over $2 million right now. Alston said that he had to take out about a $5,500 loan to cover the difference between his scholarship and the actual cost of attendance. And yes, that included things like gas money, a little bit of pizza on the weekends every now and again. You want to buy your girlfriend a ticket to a movie once in a while, the little things like that. You mentioned academic scholarships. I wasn't on an athletic scholarship. I think anybody who's seen me recently could tell you that.
That is why I question your running.
I was on an academic scholarship, though. I was on a full ride, as a matter of fact. I pieced together several different scholarship packages, both from the University of Louisiana Tech, both from the state with programs like TOPS, and then some independent scholarships that I applied for and was granted through different contests and things like that. All of that stuff came together to mean that not only did I have all of my bills paid for as far as the actual tuition and room and board, although I didn't live on campus for very long, but I got a refund check back every quarter. And I'd go get that refund check with the leftover scholarship after my tuition was paid, and I would use that refund check to pay for my books and for my rent in my apartment once I moved off campus, and for a little bit of Burger King here and there, and a
part of
for
the
scholarship,
though.
All part of the scholarship, that's right. And as long as I was a wise manager on my money and didn't waste a lot of time doing things I probably shouldn't have been doing anyway, turns out that was plenty of cash. What happened, Nick, is I went 5 years instead of 4 years. A couple of those scholarships dried up because I was having a good time in college, and that last year I ended up having to take out some actual loans to continue living the life I'd become accustomed to. I think that's exactly what happens. These guys, you interact with so many different players and so many different students from different walks of life. And what one student is able to do based on his family background, his academic progress, his athletic scholarships perhaps, all of those things coming together, what they're able to do in their free time might be different than what you're able to do as a student. I don't think inherently that's the university's problem. Just because you come from a background where your scholarships is the only money that you're going to be able to get, that's not a university problem. Here's the one thing that I think is a university issue, and this is a bad case for it. Shawnee, I appreciate his questions and his issues here, but he's a bad case, just like we talked about with the Nick Saban rule change. It should have been Todd Berry bringing it up from the beginning. You need a different guy coming out in support of these kinds of questions because Shawnee just looks a little greedy and like a bad manager. That's what it comes down to. Pizza and beer and a little gas money, the university doesn't need to foot the bill for that. The question for me comes when you're talking about long-term, when you're talking about royalties and revenue, when you're talking about video game rights, when you're talking about licensing for jerseys, when you're talking about all of the merchandising that the NCAA and that these individual universities sell and make money off of, a lot of money, as a matter of fact. that's the kind of thing that I start to look at and say, hey, maybe the players could get a piece of that. But again, I'm not talking about a check week to week. I'm not talking about a check week to week. I'm talking about a long-term, you got to hold it.
See, I disagree with that, and obviously I do play a video game, PlayStation 3. I love playing college football over NFL, although unfortunately it looks like it will be NFL the way to go because of the college games, because I think the NCAA, the colleges are making an investment in you, and they do that. So I'm not for that, but I will say this. Great. I'm going to go over a couple of points. Number one, I want to get to one of the replies on our Facebook page, and you can reply. We linked this article on the Facebook Nick Brown Show page. Just go there and like it, and you can post. Now, Jesse says this is a BS. Normally would overlook that, but he said if you're on scholarship to play football or basketball at any Division I program and you have money problems, you're an idiot. Now, Jesse's strong words there, but he says you probably shouldn't be in college to begin with. These guys are pampered more than most people actually understand. All of their costs are covered. They can still receive Pell Grants at Sam Houston State University. That is another $2,700 a semester. And the NCAA, many people don't know this, grants hardship funds for student athletes who demonstrate a need. They may also work during the spring and summer if they are that strapped for cash. If these guys really think they're getting the short straw, they should try being a regular student. Or better yet, try being a student athlete in a partial scholarship sport. Then they'll understand what real money problems are.
Well, that's a great point. You look at some of these other sports. Of course, basketball and football get all the attention. Baseball, maybe as a third, especially depending upon what school you're talking about.
Or where you live.
Yeah, or where you live, exactly. But it's the other sports, the softball, tennis, swimming, track and field, all of these other sports where you've got athletes that are expected to do just as much on the court or on the field, that are expected to do just as much off the court or off the field as far as practice, as far as the time and commitment to training, as far as their academic achievements. And yet the scholarships aren't the same.
Okay, and now you said that, and Monty replies, Title IX, follow the money. And that's one thing that our Mr. Mountaineer, Sean Austin, doesn't take into consideration. Yeah, the football program is bringing in a lot of money to the university. How much does it cost to go to a soccer match, tennis, volleyball, bowling?
How much does that new natatorium cost you?
It doesn't. It doesn't pay any bills. But yet those programs, due to Title IX, and I'm not against Title IX. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying the money has to come from somewhere. Nobody gives you the uniforms for the tennis team. The university has to buy them. Well, the tennis team does not generate revenue. The tennis team has a match. Let's just say for Louisiana Tech, they travel to Southern Mississippi and Hattiesburg. That's a relatively close one. Still gas in a van. There's still equipment involved. Let's just say for ULM, they're traveling to Little Rock or Arkansas State or Troy. They're making a trip somewhere. You go to Grambling, they're going to make a trip to Alabama State and Montgomery and play, and they're non-revenue sports on campus. That money has to come from somewhere, Sean, so that, you go through that. And also I'll look at this one thing that people don't realize. Now, I love athletic dormitories. Now that you can trace a lot of the problems in college athletics when you did away with athletic dormitories. They're making a comeback, people living on campus. But when athletes, you talk about getting a check, they have a choice when they decide to live off campus to get a check to pay for their, and there's an allotment that's what's allowed. Now, they can use their full allotment and stay at the Ritz-Carlton, or they can go stay, and I'm using these as an example, or they can stay at the Sleep Inn. They can make a choice about what apartment they're going to choose. Most often they choose the higher upper end. Now, if they stayed at one, hey, I don't want you to be without any amenities, but do you really need a clubhouse when you got the athletic training facility?
Exactly.
Those kind of things. And then that would be money that you could have. It's about budgeting, and I think that's what Jesse was really talking about.
Absolutely. And the broader issue, Nick, it comes back to the question that we raised earlier. Is the NCAA a business, or is it about educating young student athletes? The NCAA is supposed to be about students first, athletes second. And if that is the case, then these issues will eventually go away because of the fact that it isn't about the football program making money. It's about the football program being the most popular, and therefore we can use some of those revenues to prop up these other sports and give our student athletes a broad experience in all of these sports and all of these programs and all of these meets and all of these competitions, as well as in their actual educational university life.
That's exactly right, and we're up against a break again, but that's one thing. Maybe push towards a 3-hour show, but certainly enjoyed great talk. Want to hear from you either on our text line or on the Diamond Ball hotline at 888-993-7762. And really tell them about the video feed again. Really,
go check it out at youtube.com/redpeachespn. That's youtube.com/redpeachespn. Subscribe there to the channel. You can get updates whenever we go live. You can see archives of the show, too. Last week's episode already up. This week will be up right after our show's over.
Now, when you talk about subscribe, is there a subscription as far as you pay money?
No, you
okay,
just click subscribe there. If you use YouTube very often, you'll just get notified whenever we've got a new video up.
Certainly good. Well, we're going to take a break. You're listening to The Nick Brown Show on ESPN 97.7 FM. We'll be back right after this break.
And one bar set of a 9-ounce tree, and the drinks set cold, and the reggae is hot, and I know this is the place for me. Get away to where the boat leaves from. It takes away all of your big problems. You could worry, you could drop them in the blue ocean, but you gotta get away to where the boat leaves. Tell me.
You depend on your vehicle to keep you on the road, but who do you trust to keep it running smoothly? Your Chevron neighborhood pit crew at Chevron Fast Lube. Drive right up and we'll take care of the rest. Relax in our comfortable waiting area while certified Chevron technicians perform an 18-point service check. Within minutes, you'll have the results, followed by the quality service you need to get you back on the road quickly and with confidence. Quality, confidence, trust. You can depend on it at your neighborhood Chevron Fast Lube. Tech Drive in Ruston.
Hi, this is Rick Godley, host of Ground Rules from the Playbook, this Sunday, 7 to 8 a.m. If his people are destroyed for lack of knowledge, that's an us problem. It's big boy Bible talk, not for whiny heinies. Join me this Sunday for Ground Rules from the Playbook, 7 to 8 a.m. Brought to you in part by Roma Italian Bistro Ruston, the Diamond Vault, and sponsored by Wells Fargo Advisors, 209 West Alabama in Ruston, and Louisiana's largest all-sports radio station, 97.7 ESPN.
This week in Louisiana Tech sports, Louisiana Tech is the regular season Conference USA men's basketball winner in its first year in the conference. La Tech finished in the four-way tie for first place in Conference USA, but earned the #1 seed via tiebreakers for the conference tournament, being held at the Don Haskins Center in El Paso, Texas. With that #1 seed, the Bulldogs received a double bye and will play the winner of Charlotte and UAB on Thursday, March 13th at 9:30 p.m. Central Time in the quarterfinals. While the Bulldogs won the title on the road, fans got to celebrate Friday night in the Thomas Assembly Center with Coach Mike White and his squad as the team held a net-cutting ceremony. Coach White addressed the fans, and the team shared a video reel detailing the trip to Houston and the clinching victory over Rice. Louisiana Tech hitters were held to just 4 hits and 3 runs by an impressive Texas A&M pitching staff in a 5-3 loss to the number 25 ranked Aggies Friday night at Olson Field at Bluebell Park. Louisiana Tech 4-9 on the season, began the night scoring with a 1-0 lead in the second, but it was a short-lived lead as the Bulldogs found themselves coming from behind on multiple occasions, eventually falling short in the loss to Texas A&M on the road. Fans can purchase tickets to Tech games over the phone at 318-257-3631.
This is the Nick Brown Show on ESPN Radio 97.7. Get in the game by calling 888-993-7762. Email nickbrownshow@suddenlink.net or get social on the Nick Brown Show Facebook page.
Welcome back to the Nick Brown Show. Appreciate you waking up today and listening. Certainly always enjoy all the great text and phone calls that we get here on the Nick Brown Show. Going to talk a little college basketball. A real condensed version because we need to talk about all those Saints personnel moves and get to the dirt from dirt. Again, 2 hours seems to just fly by every Saturday morning, but we want you to be a part of it. Come out and join us live. We're at the Depot, Ruston's only downtown coffee shop. It's coffee with a cause, Thousand Hills Coffee. Really great. Need to check that out on the internet, but it's really great coffee. Enjoyed a Southern Pecan roast this morning. But, Joe, college basketball, wrap it up. We know that Conference USA, Louisiana Tech clinched their share of Conference USA. And the great thing about that for Louisiana Tech fans, what you need to know is the tournament starting out in El Paso. Congratulations. Already secured an NIT because you got the #1 seed. Now, 4 teams sharing the title, the good thing about being the number 1 seed, and I could explain to you, take 20 minutes to tell you how all that came to be. But bottom line, Louisiana Tech is the number 1 seed with all of those 4 teams. Now, the great thing of that is you've guaranteed an NIT berth. And we talked to Tommy McClellan, the athletic director, Tommy McClellan, a few weeks ago, and already put in an application. The bid process, it starts really early. Don't look at it as a negative thing. That is a positive thing, being proactive and not reactive. Obviously, Mike White and all the Bulldogs shooting for that NCAA tournament berth, and that's where you want to go. But if you don't and you land in the NIT, you certainly want to be playing at home. But now let's talk about the odds of getting the NCAA tournament bid. Now, obviously, you go out to El Paso and win the conference tournament, Joe, you're going to be in the NCAA tournament. Now, what are you going to have to do? You're going to have to survive that first-round game, and then you're going to meet, just if everything plays out the way it should, meet Southern Miss, and then move on to play. And the thing that I would not like to see them play is El Paso, obviously, in the finals on the home court. But that's what you're looking at there, possibility of going to the NCAA tournament. Now, moving over to the Sun Belt, I think with ULM, congratulations on qualifying for the tournament. That is in New Orleans. I think, great, that's a good, easy drive to make it. If you're a Warhawk fan, make it down to New Orleans to that conference tournament. Bottom line, all you can do is play your way in by winning the conference tournament. Now I'm going to turn to the SEC, where that directly affects Conference USA, in my opinion. You look at the SEC, and you can say bad basketball, and I'll agree with you. Is it that bad, or is it parity within the league? Maybe a combination of both, but I'll lean to bad basketball. But bottom line, here's the situation. SEC has 2 locks into the NCAA tournament, being Kentucky and Florida, Joel. But I'm going to go a little bit different. I think Arkansas is almost a lock because of their season sweep of Kentucky. I think if Arkansas wins their last regular season game, and then they go and win a game in the conference tournament, I think they're in. I really do. I think Arkansas is in. Now, how does that affect Louisiana Tech or the rest of Conference USA? Well, you have to pay close attention to. There are a lot of teams in the SEC on the bubble. Let's just say Arkansas were to lose their last regular season game and also lose in the first round of the SEC tournament. Their bubble picture grows really small. Tennessee is playing at home today to take on Missouri. Missouri goes into Knoxville and defeats Tennessee today, and then Tennessee drops their first-round decision in the SEC tournament, and I think Tennessee's bubble, it goes away as well. Well, then that might leave Missouri. If Missouri defeating Tennessee and then wins, I think, 2 games in the SEC tournament, they're there. And why am I telling you all of this? Because you look at LSU down in Baton Rouge, where they have to do, I think, obviously, if all of that happens and LSU wins to their last regular season game over Georgia, that hurts Georgia. Then LSU wins 2. I think they're in. And the beauty of that would be that would lead 3 to get into the NCAA tournament. How does that affect Conference USA? When you have 4 teams that tied, and by the way, it's only the 3rd time in the history that multiple teams tied, I think, and it has happened 19 years ago. But the thing about it, is there an at-large bid in Conference USA, Joe? And that's what you're looking for, because what if you stump your toe? What if you have a bad game? I think for Louisiana Tech, what you're looking more for out of Louisiana Tech, if they were to lose in the finals and all those things happen, there's a possibility. But I think really what may happen out in El Paso, Joe, is that Louisiana Tech defeats Southern Mississippi by single digits and then wins the tournament. I think there's a greater chance for that to happen. I just got a text line. You're right. Can't play UTEP in the finals. Very good point. But so you're not going to meet that. But look at it. But the point is, the greater chance of Conference USA having 2 teams in the big dance would be Louisiana Tech as your champion, and then Southern Miss based on your RPI as your at-large bid.
I agree very much. Although I do think there's the outside chance, as you said, if Louisiana Tech stumbles maybe late, perhaps even in the finals against Southern Miss, it's a close game.
So that they can't beat Southern Miss in the finals.
Excuse me, yes. But if they were to stumble late in the tournament, and these other teams were to fall, as you said, especially in the SEC, there is the potential for Louisiana Tech, I think, to sneak in.
Right. If Southern Miss were to defeat Louisiana Tech by single digits, and Southern Miss wins in the finals by 20 points or plus, there you go. Exactly. Reverse that.
But interesting thing today, especially for LSU, they've got a bit of a streak at home. 7 straight SEC games at home. They're going to be taking on Georgia today. It's Senior Day 2. They're going to be honoring some seniors there at about 3:45 before the tip-off at 4:05. So an interesting matchup for them with lots of ramifications potentially for not just the SEC, but for Conference USA and other mid-majors around the country.
Yeah, certainly. Well,
it's that time of year, man. Some really interesting stuff. Before we get to the break here, I want to play you some audio because I know a lot of you have been talking about all week, as I have been, the moves for the New Orleans Saints. We don't talk a lot of NFL here on the Nick Brown Show. We're more of a college show, but this is our home team, of course, and they've been clearing house. Tons of moves on the defense, of course, just about a week and a half ago or so. All of those I really understood. The Saints parted ways with longtime veterans like defensive stalwarts Will Smith, Jonathan Vilma, Roman Harper, and Jabari Greer. And again, all of those I was on board with. Earlier this week, though, they released Lance Moore. Lance Moore's 30 years old this season. He was due to make $3.8 million in salary and bonuses this year, including, most importantly, a $500,000 roster bonus due this month. His pending release was first reported by ESPN NFL insider Adam Schefter. Then, after that, Darren Sproles is released. That move is said to save the Saints more than $3 million in cap space, but it still comes as a surprise. Sproles touched the ball 165 times for the Saints last season, including 71 catches and 41 returns. Here's a little bit of audio from ESPN with more info on these moves.
The Saints are parting ways with running back Darren Sproles. Now, whether they release him or not depends on if they're able to trade him. This according to ESPN and multiple media reports. Now, this is what Sproles had to say about the Saints' decision, tweeting, "Thank you, New Orleans, for your support over the past 3 years. I will always be forever grateful. Who dat?" And with more on this, we welcome in Saints reporter Mike Triplett. And Mike, this is a guy who set the NFL record for all-purpose yards in a single season just a few years ago. So why are the Saints releasing Sproles?
Well, yeah, look, they've been making a lot of these moves recently with veteran players who were core members of their team for a long time, and this one is definitely the most surprising yet. Following up with Lance Moore earlier in the day and a lot of older defensive leaders last month. I think, though, it's a calculated move just like the others. Darren Sproles is 30 years old. He showed slight signs of decline in production in recent years, and you know, they're just making a lot of tough moves because they're close to the salary cap on whose value meets their expected production going forward. Like I said, this one's the biggest surprise. I think it's going to be the hardest one for Saints fans and teammates to swallow. But I guess it's a precarious life of a 30-year-old running back in the NFL these days.
Now, Mike, you just mentioned it. The Saints have been making a lot of roster moves, releasing guys like Lance Moore, Will Smith, Jonathan Vilma. So are they done? Should we expect to see some more roster moves?
Maybe not. You know, Adam Schefter reported that they're also shopping Pierre Thomas. I don't know if they would be looking to release both Sproles and Thomas in the same year, though they do have a lot of young depth at running back. We looked at maybe another candidate in Broderick Bunkley, a high-priced defensive player, but I think more than anything from now on they could do, you know, contract restructures to get under the cap, but obviously they're being very aggressive in evaluating every player, so they might not be done yet.
Now, some of these roster moves have received some backlash from the team. Tight end Jimmy Graham, who was hit with that franchise tag last week, tweeting out this: "Wow, unbelievable, shocked and disappointed on everything that's gone on this offseason." Obviously, some strong words from their Pro Bowl tight end. How will this affect the team?
Well, you know, right up until the Sproles move, I was still writing that these are the kind of tough moves you see everywhere. You see Champ Bailey in Denver. You see moves like this going on all around the league all the time. It's a tough reality in the NFL. I think that the Sproles news kind of preceded Jimmy Graham's tweet, maybe put a lot of people over the top, because it just starts to feel like a lot of valuable pieces who have still been really valuable as recently as last year. But I will say this, the Saints have done a great job, and Jimmy Graham is a perfect example of continually restocking the shelves with core players that they can rely on moving forward. So I don't think these moves are going to break the Saints, but it is a lot to take in 1 year.
That's ESPN Saints reporter Mike Triplett with the latest on Darren Sproles being released by the Saints. I'm Dario Melendez.
Great stuff there from ESPN. Jimmy Graham's tweet, I agree with him 100%. It has been a shocking and a little bit disappointing offseason. A lot of the moves I could get behind. I think that you've got some of the smartest personnel people in the league down there in New Orleans, and so I'm behind my guys, but just releasing Darren Sproles seems like an awful big move. And my real question is this. Part of this is about freeing up cash to pay Jimmy Graham. You know, he's been franchise tagged as a tight end, of course, he argued that he should have been tagged as a wide receiver, and that's going to cost him about $5 million difference there. But they're going to be paying him somewhere in the neighborhood of $7 million this year, I think, as the franchise tight end. And some of this was about freeing up cash to pay him. But it's not just about getting paid, Nick. It's about forming a team that you've got guys that want to commit to long term. And if the cupboard is bare, Jimmy Graham's going to find a team with better pieces to fit around him, a happier situation with the administration, and I don't think this can be a happy long-term situation.
Well, I tell you what, then everything you said, you have faith in your guys, and you come back with that. Either you do or you don't. I think I have faith in the guys. I think they're going to make the best. They're making the best decisions. Although I don't really understand Sproles going through, but Jimmy Graham's tweet really is kind of. It's ironic that it's been some very sad moves, but basically these moves have been about you. And so here's the thing: as you're looking with that, I certainly think I wouldn't be opposed to getting 2 first-rounders for Jimmy Graham if that's on the table.
Boy, I don't know. I think he's the best tight end in the league by a mile, and I think he's the kind of player that you can build a franchise around. Still, I was surprised to see him playing hardball with him, truthfully. Yeah, let's go to the phone lines while we do. Diamond Vault Hotline, who do we have?
We have B.
Hey, man, come on.
Hey, guys. Hey, I just got a second, but I was listening to you. I was listening to that report. I'm like, y'all, Graham tweeting that kind of ticks me off because a lot of this is about him. It's about making money, making room for money for him. And we're not in a building. He's a guy you can build around, but we're not building. We're not at a point where we need to be building. And at this point, no, I don't want 2 first-rounders for him because then what do you have? Lance Moore is somebody, how in the world, that's your go-to guy. That guy's been solid. He was undrafted 6 years ago, the first year that Peyton and them were there, and that's just, I don't know, some of this is ridiculous, but I appreciate it. That's all the time I had. I appreciate you guys listening.
Hey, thank you. Very good. And I agree with you. You're talking about that, but you are making room for a guy. And I understand when you get rid of a guy, say if you were, and I said that for 2 first-rounders, and then you're basically bringing in new guys, and their transition to the NFL. Certainly understand that as well. But again, bottom line, this front office has made decisions that have worked out very well in the past, and so you have to really. I mean, you hate it, but that's the business. Players come and go, and that's the thing. Do you have faith in the people there, and then the decisions they're making now? You'll know in a year or two if they paid off, but certainly. And I understand B talking about Lance Moore, but really, Sproles for me, and because you got Ingram, and you're going to go with that. So I just really looking, but again, you got to either have faith in them or you don't, because in a couple of years, Drew Brees is not going to be there forever as well. And bottom line, it's the name on the front of the jersey, not the name on the back.
That's what I was just about to say. With the Saints in particular, I cheer for the name on the front of the jersey, not the name on the back. And so I'm down with them. I'm going to be there. I'll be a Who Dat fan again this year. Lance Moore, I understand what he's saying. It's a heartbreaker, man. It reminds me of losing Joe Horn a few years
back.
Back.
It goes back any time. And one thing, with professional baseball, normally it's due to retirement. Of course, now a lot of trades in baseball as well. But cutting guys, that's a difficult part of it. And it goes back to one thing. You could be like me occasionally and follow a player instead of a team, and then it doesn't matter where they're playing because you're following that player. I do want to clarify one thing, and someone asked, we had several texts during the break, and real quick before we're up against the break and almost out of time, how did Louisiana Tech get the number 1 seed, although Southern Miss defeated Louisiana Tech? That certainly is confusing. I'm going to give you the Cliff Notes version of it because I want to go to this bracket as well. Here's the situation. Yes, Southern Miss did defeat Louisiana Tech. And you say, well, gee, how could we be first over that if you're a Louisiana Tech fan? Well, it's really simple. You take the 4 teams that are tied and look at their head-to-head record with everybody, and Louisiana Tech defeated 2 of those guys and lost to Southern Miss. So 2-1. Southern Miss, on the other hand, lost to Tulsa. That's their loss. They also lost to Middle, I do believe. Not Middle, UTEP. So now you're having a 1-2 record. Southern Miss, not UTEP. Let me get this right. The number 4 seeds. Southern Miss lost to Tulsa, and then they also lost to Middle, so for a 1-2 mark. Louisiana Tech was 2-1 against those other 3 teams. Southern Miss 1-2. Now, going back to that bracket, looks like you're going to have Louisiana Tech first game will be versus the winner of UAB Charlotte, and on the other side, then they win that game. They would play most likely the winner of Southern Miss and UTEP, as UTEP got the bye as well, and they'll be playing the winner of East Carolina and Texas San Antonio. So it will probably be, looks like either Louisiana Tech, if they were to move, don't put the cart before the horse, win the first-round game, play the winner of Southern Miss and UTEP, and probably what I know about basketball, the way that Danny Manning has Tulsa playing, looks like if everything worked out the way that Louisiana Tech wants it to, it'll be Louisiana Tech and Tulsa in the finals. Before we go to a break, I guess we'll go straight to the dirt from dirt. Let's go to the dirt from dirt.
Hey, gentlemen, I found a little nugget here talking about Conference USA basketball. As we all know, we have 4 co-champions this year, that being Louisiana Tech with the 1 seed, Middle Tennessee, Tulsa, and Southern Miss. But if you go back to the 03-04 season in Conference USA, you had 5 co-champions that year. DePaul, Memphis, Cincinnati, UAB, and Charlotte. Cincinnati ended up winning the tournament and getting the automatic bid, but 5 co-champions in the conference. That is a heck of a headache, and that is the dirt from dirt.
Certainly is a major ibuprofen moment. You're right, that is a headache. Certainly, I always enjoy the Dirt from Dirt, a feature you find only on the Nick Brown Show every Saturday morning from 9 to 11. We want you to be a part of the show. Come out to the Depot, Ruston's only downtown coffee shop. Get complimentary coffee and those wonderful, delicious Daylight Donuts. Certainly hope I answered those questions for you as far as Louisiana Tech and how they ended up with the number 1 seed is concerned. Certainly been a great show. Always the possibility of moving towards that 3rd hour, Joel, because the 2 hours go quick, and certainly we want your championship nominations every week on our Facebook page. Certainly easy to pick out chumps this week.
Oh, man, there were a ton of them. You can always drop your nominations off on our Facebook page, facebook.com/Nick Brown Show. Check out our website, ESPN 97.7. Make sure you go by our YouTube page, too, youtube.com/RedPeachESPN.
Well, final thoughts. I want to tell you, I appreciate Skip Russell State Farm. They are the official insurance of the Nick Brown Show for all your insurance needs. Home life or auto, give them a call at 255-5050, located on Reynolds Drive and Ruston. They also insure your 14-foot John boat now that you have to file a claim on it, but certainly appreciate Skip Russell State Farm as the official insurance of the Nick Brown Show.
And you know something you mentioned earlier, Nick, about the Dubach Air and Heat, about the kind of eating our own dog food, so to speak, is in these sponsors, we're not just they're not just sponsors for us, we are customers as well, generally. State Farm Insurance, Skip Russell State Farm, one of the things they don't advertise a ton, they've got banking products now, too. I'm a customer myself. Not only do I have all my insurance with them, but all through one agent. I've got my checking account, my credit cards, I've got a home loan, car loan, the whole 9 yards there. Skip Russell State Farm Insurance. Contact them for all your needs.
Hey, certainly, we appreciate you listening to the Nick Brown Show. It's been a lot of fun. Give us feedback on the text line or on our Facebook page, and we'll be back next week. But, guys, until then, as always, keep the coffee warm.
What if you could create a bank that's just right for your business? You'd need a bank with easy-to-use tools to manage your business.